They left you in silence. They turned their backs. They whispered, "He's done." But what they didn't understand is that silence is where real power is built. When no one supports you, you don't break, you sharpen. When no one shows up for you, you rise alone. And that's exactly why you become unstoppable. In this audiobook, a man with no support becomes unstoppable in silence. You'll learn how to transform loneliness into discipline, how to turn rejection into resilience, and how to build in the dark until you shine on your own terms. Whether you're a man or a woman, this journey is for you. This isn't about proving them wrong, it's about becoming someone so focused, so relentless, that nothing can stop you. Silence is not your punishment, it's your preparation. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Why Silence Builds Stronger Men. Real strength is not built in the spotlight, it's forged in silence. When no one is watching, when no one is clapping, that's when you meet the raw version of yourself. In silence, there's no performance. There's no pretending. It's just you versus you. And in that space, the truth surfaces. You find out who you are without the mask, without the noise, without the crowd. Silence removes distractions. It strips away the opinions, the comparisons, the need for approval. It leaves you with one simple question: who do you choose to become when no one is paying attention? In that question lies your transformation. Because the man who can focus in silence will dominate when the world finally notices. Most men avoid silence because it forces them to face their weaknesses. It brings up the thoughts they've buried, the fears they've ignored, the pain they've pushed aside. But the man who embraces that discomfort, who sits in it, confronts it, and grows from it, builds a kind of mental armor that no crowd can provide. Growth happens in private, long before it shows in public. The discipline, the late nights, the sacrifices, those moments are unseen. But they're the foundation of greatness. Silence is not absence, it's preparation. The world only sees the results, but the man knows the battle he fought alone to get there. When you train in silence, you remove the crutch of validation. You stop needing applause to keep going. Your motivation becomes internal, not external. That makes you dangerous because you no longer move for approval. You move for mastery. You become self-sustaining, self-driven, and fully in control. Silence forces reflection. It makes you ask hard questions. Am I aligned with my purpose? Am I wasting time? Am I becoming stronger or weaker? In the noise of life, it's easy to avoid these questions. But in silence, you're forced to face them. And facing them is where growth begins. A man who trains in silence learns patience. He understands that results take time, that evolution isn't instant. He doesn't panic when progress is slow because he's not chasing quick wins, he's building something unshakable. Patience sharpens his edge, and that edge sets him apart from the restless and the reckless. When you build in silence, you eliminate the temptation to perform for others. You stop posting every move. You stop announcing every goal. You keep your process private. And because of that, your energy stays pure. No leaks, no distractions, just consistent, focused progress in the shadows. Silence is where you learn to listen to your thoughts, to your instincts, to the whispers of discipline calling you to rise. In noise, it's easy to drown out your own wisdom. But in silence, you have no choice but to hear it. And once you listen, you can't unhear it. That inner voice becomes your guide. Strength built in silence is different from strength built in noise. Noise strength is temporary, it fades when the crowd leaves, but silence strength stays. It's internal, it's quiet, it's unshakable. You don't need to prove it because you've already lived it, over and over, in the dark, when no one else was watching. The man who trains in silence controls his emotions. He's not reactive. He doesn't get pulled into drama, distraction, or ego games. He knows his lane. He knows his mission. And because his mind is calm, his decisions are clear. Emotional discipline is born in quiet moments, not in chaos. Isolation teaches self-reliance. When you're alone, you can't outsource your growth. You can't lean on others to push you. You have to be your own coach, your own motivator, your own strategist. That kind of self-leadership is rare, and it's built in the hours when no one is telling you what to do. Silence builds resilience. It teaches you how to stay committed even when no one notices your effort. It conditions you to push forward without external rewards. And when life throws setbacks at you, you don't crumble because you've already practiced persistence in solitude. A man who embraces silence doesn't fear solitude. He uses it. While others waste time fearing loneliness, he sharpens his mind, his skills, and his discipline. He becomes comfortable with his own company. And in that comfort, he becomes powerful, because he no longer needs the world to fill his emptiness. In silence, your true work ethic is revealed. Without an audience, will you still show up? Without recognition, will you still execute? The man who answers yes becomes unstoppable because his drive is rooted in purpose, not praise. And purpose-driven men are the most dangerous of all. Silence sharpens focus. With no distractions, you can go deeper into your craft, your training, your vision. You stop multitasking life. You start locking in. And in that focus, you find flow. You find mastery. You become obsessed with progress not because anyone's watching, but because it matters to you. A man who chooses silence learns how to regulate his thoughts. He notices his mental patterns. He catches the negative loops before they spiral. In the quiet, he trains his mind to stay disciplined. That kind of mental control translates into every part of life, business, relationships, health, legacy. Building in silence makes your return powerful. When you step back into the world after private growth, people won't recognize you. They'll wonder how you became so focused, so calm, so sharp. But they won't see the nights you trained alone, the mornings you chose discipline over distraction. Silence is not weakness, it's strategy. The loudest man is rarely the strongest. The man who can stay quiet while building, who can disappear to develop, and who can come back stronger without explanation, that's the man no one can predict and no one can stop. In the end, silence isn't about isolation, it's about elevation. It's about stepping away from the noise to build a version of yourself so strong, so disciplined, so focused, that when you return to the world, you're unrecognizable. Not because you told them you've changed, but because your results made it undeniable. Chapter 2. Loneliness is training, not punishment. Loneliness is often misunderstood. Most people see it as punishment, as if being alone means they've failed somehow. But the truth is, loneliness is part of the process of becoming stronger. It's a training ground, not a prison. It strips away the noise, the comfort, and the distractions, so you can meet the rawest version of yourself and rebuild from there. When you're alone, you're forced to sit with your own thoughts. That's not easy. It's where you face your deepest fears, insecurities, and unresolved wounds. But this confrontation is necessary. You cannot heal what you refuse to face. Loneliness brings those shadows to the surface so you can deal with them once and for all. Most people avoid loneliness because they fear the silence. They constantly seek distraction to fill the emptiness, but running from solitude only delays growth. When you stop filling the space with noise, you create room for clarity. You begin to hear your own voice again, the one buried under opinions and expectations. Loneliness teaches you resilience. It shows you that you can stand on your own without crumbling. It removes the crutch of constant companionship and forces you to develop inner strength. You learn to trust yourself, guide yourself, and become your own motivator. That's a skill most never develop. When no one checks on you, when no one cheers for you, that's when you learn what discipline really is. Do you keep going without applause? Do you stay consistent when no one notices? That's the test of loneliness, and those who pass it come out stronger than those who only know how to move when supported. Loneliness sharpens focus. It takes you away from the chaos of constant social interaction and gives you space to think clearly. It allows you to prioritize your life, cut off distractions, and identify what actually matters to you. In this solitude, you find out who you are without the influence of others. Being alone doesn't mean you're unloved, it means you're in a season of refinement. Some stages of growth require isolation because they demand your full attention. You can't transform while entertaining distractions. Sometimes the universe clears your path, so you can finally look inward. When you walk alone, you develop mental toughness. There's no one to lean on, so you lean on yourself. You become your own problem solver, your own counselor, your own motivator. That self-reliance is priceless. It prepares you for challenges that others can't handle because they've never had to face them alone. Loneliness also teaches emotional control. When you're isolated, emotions hit harder because there's no one around to distract you from them. But this is not a curse, a chance to train emotional discipline. You learn how to feel deeply without falling apart. You learn how to sit with discomfort and stay steady. Not everyone is meant to walk with you. Some people are seasonal. When you're forced into solitude, it often means the wrong people have been removed from your path. This creates space for the right people to enter later, once you've grown into the version of yourself that attracts better connections. Loneliness exposes your weaknesses so you can strengthen them. It reveals the gaps in your character, the cracks in your mindset, the blind spots in your habits. This awareness hurts at first, but it's necessary. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge. Solitude makes you brutally honest with yourself. When you're alone, you realize that you are responsible for your life. No one is coming to save you. No one will do the work for you. That reality is heavy, but it's also empowering. Once you accept it, you stop waiting and start building. You become the creator of your own destiny. Loneliness builds patience. Growth is slow. Transformation is quiet. There are no overnight success stories, only long nights of silent work. When you're alone, you learn to be okay with the process. You stop rushing. You understand that mastery takes time, and you develop the patience to stay with it. Solitude teaches you how to enjoy your own company. Most people run from being alone because they don't like who they are when no one is watching. But when you use solitude as training, you start to respect yourself more. You learn to find peace within, rather than needing constant external stimulation. Loneliness trains you to control your time. When you're alone, no one else is dictating your schedule. That can either lead to wasted days or productive transformation. The choice is yours. This is where discipline is born, when you choose structure over chaos, even when no one is forcing you to. When you build in solitude, you realize that most of the world moves in distraction, not direction. People chase comfort, not growth. But when you embrace being alone, you start moving differently. You stop following the crowd. You start building a life that reflects vision, not convenience. Loneliness teaches you to validate yourself. Without outside applause, you learn to measure success by your own standards. You stop asking, "Do they approve?" and start asking, "Am I aligned with my purpose?" That shift gives you real power, because your worth is no longer in someone else's hands. Solitude reveals your strength. The more time you spend alone, the more you realize you can handle life without leaning on temporary fixes or superficial distractions. You discover a deeper layer of resilience, one that doesn't crumble under pressure because it's built on inner discipline, not outer validation. Being alone is not a punishment, it's a phase of preparation. The man who learns to thrive in solitude becomes unstoppable when he returns to the world. He moves differently. He carries silent power. He no longer fears rejection, abandonment, or being overlooked because he knows how to lead himself, even in the dark. When you embrace loneliness as training, you stop fearing it. You start using it. You sharpen your mind, strengthen your will, and build a foundation that no one can take from you. And when the world finally sees you again, you won't be the same man who disappeared. You'll be the one who returns unrecognizable. Chapter 3. The Power of Self-Reliance. Self-reliance is not just a skill, it's a mindset. It's the decision to become the kind of person who doesn't wait for help, permission, or saving. When you commit to self-reliance, you stop outsourcing your success to circumstances or people. You take full ownership of your life, your actions, and your outcomes. That shift creates unstoppable momentum. The world will try to convince you that you need a support system to succeed. And while connection is valuable, relying on it as a crutch is dangerous. The man who can push forward when no one is clapping, who can discipline himself when no one is watching, that man becomes unbreakable, because he's not dependent on external motivation. Self-reliance builds confidence from the inside out. When you start solving your own problems, making your own decisions, and standing on your own 2 feet, you stop doubting your capability. You start realizing that you are the resource, you are the solution, you are the leader of your own life. Dependence weakens your edge. If you always need advice before action or permission before progress, you stay stuck in a loop of hesitation. Self-reliance breaks that loop. It teaches you to trust your instincts, to make bold moves, and to learn from experience rather than waiting for the perfect conditions. When you become self-reliant, you stop blaming others. You stop pointing fingers at your past, your environment, or your circumstances. Excuses become irrelevant. You shift from, "Why did this happen to me?" to, "How do I respond to this?" That mindset puts you in the driver's seat, no longer at the mercy of life's curveballs. Self-reliance creates mental toughness. Life will test you, plans will fail, people will disappoint you. But when you've trained yourself to be self-reliant, you don't collapse under pressure. You adjust, you adapt, you move forward. You've already practiced getting up alone, so setbacks no longer break you. Relying on yourself forces you to become resourceful. You stop looking for easy answers and start creating solutions. You develop creativity, problem-solving, and resilience. You learn how to figure things out when the path isn't clear. That resourcefulness becomes one of your most powerful tools. Building self-reliance means embracing responsibility. It's realizing that no one owes you anything, not success, not support, not understanding. And once you accept that, you stop waiting for life to be fair. You start building anyway. You stop negotiating with reality and start dominating it. Self-reliance teaches you to handle your emotions. You learn how to regulate your mindset when things go wrong. There's no one to pick you up when you fall, so you pick yourself up. That practice strengthens your emotional core. You become calmer under stress, sharper under pressure, and more stable in chaos. The man who depends on no one becomes the man who can help everyone. Because he's filled his own cup first, he's not desperate or needy. He gives from abundance, not lack. His relationships improve because he's not clinging to others for validation or rescue. He's chosen to stand solid on his own. Self-reliance changes the way you see failure. You no longer fear mistakes because you trust yourself to recover. Failure isn't fatal when you believe in your ability to adapt and grow. That freedom allows you to take risks, to move boldly, and to pursue goals that others are too afraid to chase. A self-reliant man controls his habits. He doesn't need someone to remind him to stay disciplined. He's his own accountability partner. He sets his standards high and holds himself to them, even when no one's watching. That consistency builds real power because it's rooted in personal integrity. Self-reliance isn't about isolation, it's about leadership. It's about becoming the person who leads yourself first, so you can lead others better. You can't guide anyone else if you're still lost in your own weakness. Mastering self-reliance makes you a better father, brother, mentor, and friend, because you're not leading from dependence. When you stop waiting for someone to save you, you discover how much strength you already have. You stop playing the victim. You stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. You start moving with purpose, knowing that no matter what happens, you have what it takes to figure it out. Self-reliance teaches you how to be consistent. Success isn't about grand gestures, it's about daily habits, done whether you feel like it or not. A self-reliant man doesn't need to be in the mood to do the work. He understands that discipline is greater than emotion. He trains that consistency until it becomes his nature. You also develop sharper instincts when you rely on yourself. You stop doubting your decisions because you've proven to yourself that you can handle the consequences. Every time you make a hard choice and grow from it, your self-trust compounds. Over time, you become decisive, clear, and confident. Self-reliance makes you untouchable to manipulation. When you don't need favors, flattery, or approval, no one can control you. You're not easily swayed by opinions or pressure. You move from purpose, not people-pleasing. That makes you dangerous to those who thrive on control and powerful to those who value freedom. A self-reliant mindset teaches you that your greatest asset is you, not your job, not your network, not your possessions, but your mind, your discipline, and your ability to adapt. Those internal tools can't be taken from you, no matter what life throws your way. That's true security. In the end, self-reliance isn't about doing everything alone forever. It's about knowing you can. It's about becoming so capable, so disciplined, so resourceful, that when support comes, it's a bonus, not a necessity. You've already built the foundation within yourself. And from that foundation, you can build anything. Chapter 4. Becoming your own mentor. At some point in life, you have to stop looking for someone to guide you and become your own mentor. Waiting for a perfect teacher to appear is a delay tactic. The truth is, everything you need to evolve is already available to you. You just have to discipline yourself to study, practice, and grow without being pushed. That's what separates leaders from followers. Being your own mentor means holding yourself accountable when no one else does. There's no coach in the room to correct you, no audience to cheer you on. It's just you and your reflection, asking the hard questions. Did I do my best today? Did I stick to my values? Did I waste time or build toward my purpose? When you become your own mentor, you shift from external motivation to internal drive. You no longer depend on someone else to light a fire under you. You learn to create your own fuel. That's powerful, because external motivation fades, but self-generated discipline lasts. It becomes part of who you are. Mentorship is about guidance, correction, and wisdom. When you mentor yourself, you become a student and a teacher at the same time. You study your actions, observe your patterns, and adjust when needed. You don't wait for someone to point out your weaknesses, you search for them actively and fix them relentlessly. A self-mentoring mindset teaches you to set higher standards. You don't settle for average because you know your potential deserves better. You don't let yourself slide because you understand the cost of laziness. Being your own mentor is about creating non-negotiable rules for yourself and sticking to them even when it's uncomfortable. The man who mentors himself becomes a master of reflection. He reviews his day, his choices, and his mindset. He doesn't just react to life, he studies his life like a strategist. What worked? What failed? How can I improve? These questions become daily rituals that sharpen his awareness and accelerate his growth. Becoming your own mentor means you learn from everything. Success becomes a lesson, not a trophy. Failure becomes data, not defeat. You view every experience as a teacher. You're constantly adjusting, evolving, and refining your character not because someone told you to, but because you chose to. The best mentors teach by example. When you mentor yourself, you do the same. You lead by action. You don't just talk about discipline, you live it. You don't just read about mindset, you train it daily. This consistency builds integrity, and integrity builds power. You begin to trust yourself on a deep level. Self-mentorship requires brutal honesty. You can't sugarcoat your flaws or make excuses for your setbacks. You have to confront the truth head-on. Did you really give your best effort? Are you aligning with your goals? This level of self-inquiry is rare, but it's where transformation happens. A self-mentored man becomes emotionally intelligent. He knows when he's making decisions from fear, pride, or ego. He knows how to pause, reassess, and choose a better response. This self-awareness protects him from self-sabotage and guides him toward consistent improvement, both mentally and emotionally. When you become your own mentor, you stop chasing comfort. You understand that growth lives in discomfort. You willingly step into hard situations because you know that's where the lessons are. You stop looking for easy paths and start building strength through challenge and resilience. A true mentor challenges you, not pampers you. As your own mentor, you adopt this mindset. You call yourself out when you're slacking. You push yourself past your limits. You encourage yourself when it's needed, but you don't tolerate your own excuses. This balance between compassion and correction is key. Self-mentorship teaches you independence. You stop relying on other people's approval to validate your choices. You make decisions based on your values, your goals, and your vision, not based on what's popular or expected. This creates freedom because you no longer live for the crowd. When you guide yourself, you also develop humility. You understand that you'll make mistakes, but you won't quit. You'll stumble, but you won't stay down. Every mistake becomes a teacher, not a shame sentence. This growth mindset keeps you moving forward with wisdom, not ego. Self-mentorship forces you to become a lifelong learner. You never assume you know it all. You study, read, reflect, and seek knowledge constantly. You realize there's always another level to reach, another layer to refine. This humility keeps you sharp and evolving, year after year. Becoming your own mentor also teaches you patience. You don't expect results overnight because you understand the process. You focus on daily progress, not instant perfection. You learn to celebrate small wins while keeping your eyes on long-term growth. This mindset creates consistency. When you mentor yourself, you become your own best investment. You stop wasting time on things that don't build you. You pour energy into your mind, your body, your purpose. You prioritize discipline over entertainment, mastery over mediocrity. This focus compounds into massive results over time. Self-mentorship creates internal peace. You don't feel lost because you trust your own guidance. You don't feel stuck because you know you're evolving daily. You don't depend on outside voices to tell you what to do because you've trained your inner voice to lead you with clarity. In the end, becoming your own mentor is about ownership. You take full responsibility for your growth, your mistakes, and your success. You stop waiting for someone to save you. You stop hoping for a perfect guide. You step up, you lead yourself, and in doing so, you become the kind of man who can't be stopped. Mentoring yourself requires discipline over emotion. You won't always feel like training, learning, or improving, but your feelings don't get to lead. A self-mentored man acts according to his mission, not his mood. He knows that discipline builds momentum, and momentum builds transformation. Emotion is acknowledged, but action is prioritized. When you guide yourself, you remove dependency from the equation. You're not waiting for a coach to tell you to get back up after failure, you tell yourself. You're not sitting in self-pity when things go wrong. You review, you reflect, and you recalibrate. That process makes you self-sufficient, and self-sufficiency breeds long-term success. A man who mentors himself builds his own structure. He doesn't rely on someone else's schedule or system. He creates his own blueprint. He decides what time he wakes up, what habits he enforces, and what standards he upholds. That kind of structure creates freedom because you're no longer at the mercy of someone else's plan. Self-mentorship means setting goals that stretch you, not just goals that feel safe. You don't aim for what's comfortable, you aim for what challenges you to grow. You set targets that demand new skills, new levels of focus, and new layers of strength. This is how you break plateaus and keep evolving. When you mentor yourself, you become the guardian of your mind. You control the thoughts you feed yourself, the beliefs you reinforce, and the narratives you allow to run. You remove the victim story and replace it with a growth story. You stop saying, "Why me?" and start saying, "What's next?" Self-guidance also builds emotional maturity. You learn to check in with your state of mind daily. You don't allow frustration or ego to hijack your decisions. Instead, you pause, observe, and act with strategy. That emotional control becomes your advantage in situations where others lose their composure. A man who mentors himself respects time differently. He understands that wasted time is wasted potential. He protects his hours, guards his focus, and eliminates activities that drain his energy without giving a return. This time, awareness compounds over months and years, turning into mastery. Mentoring yourself teaches you to own your weaknesses. You no longer hide from flaws, you hunt them down. You study your patterns, expose your blind spots, and create solutions. This kind of proactive growth makes you stronger because you're constantly improving instead of avoiding the truth. When you lead yourself, you develop the courage to say no. No to distractions, no to unnecessary obligations, no to people who drain your energy. You set boundaries not out of selfishness, but out of respect for your mission. You know that focus is your currency, and you spend it wisely. Self-mentorship demands consistency. It's not about massive effort once in a while, it's about daily practice. You read, reflect, journal, train, and execute repeatedly. Over time, these small actions stack into massive transformation. You don't need motivation because your system is built on consistency, not emotion. A self-mentored man becomes a student of life. He learns from failure, from wins, from books, from people, from silence. Everything becomes a lesson. He doesn't need a formal classroom because he's trained himself to extract wisdom from every experience. That's how he evolves faster than most. When you mentor yourself, you create mental resilience. Life will test you through loss, betrayal, failure, but you've already trained for that. You've practiced standing back up, adjusting your mindset, and staying the course. That practice makes you weatherproof, ready for whatever storms come your way. Becoming your own mentor sharpens your decision-making. You stop second-guessing yourself because you've built a track record of learning and improving. You trust your judgment because you've trained it. You've studied the consequences of past decisions, and that knowledge guides your future choices. Self-leadership teaches you to work in silence. You don't need to broadcast every step. You don't need to impress people along the way. Your focus is on execution, not validation. And when you do speak, your results will do the talking for you. Quiet mastery is louder than empty noise. Mentoring yourself means managing your mental environment. You choose what content you consume, what conversations you entertain, and what thoughts you allow to loop. You don't feed your mind junk, you feed it discipline, strategy, and purpose. Your mental diet shapes your life, and you control the menu. When you lead yourself, you handle setbacks differently. Instead of collapsing, you collect data. You ask, what did I miss? How can I improve? You treat failure as feedback, not finality. This approach keeps you moving forward while others stay stuck in regret. Self-mentorship builds integrity. You do the right thing even when no one's watching. You keep promises to yourself, not just to others. That integrity creates inner peace because you're not living a double life. You're aligned with your values, and that alignment fuels unstoppable momentum. A man who mentors himself becomes anti-fragile. Challenges don't break him, they build him. Pressure doesn't crush him, it sharpens him. He's trained his mind to respond, not react, to grow, not shrink. That mindset makes him more powerful with every test life throws at him. Self-mentorship also teaches you legacy thinking. You're not just living for the next week or month, you're building habits, systems, and values that last for decades. You're creating a blueprint for your future self and for anyone who looks to you for leadership. That long-term vision keeps you grounded. In the end, becoming your own mentor is about mastery over self. It's about guiding your growth, correcting your course, and challenging your comfort. No one else can do this work for you. But once you commit, you become unstoppable, not because you're perfect, but because you refuse to quit on your own evolution. Chapter 5. Disappear to rebuild, in private. Sometimes the best way to grow is to disappear. Not physically vanish from life, but to step back from the noise, the distractions, and the eyes of the world. Private growth is powerful because it's focused. No one's watching, so there's no performance. There's no pretending. You're free to rebuild without interference. When you disappear, you give yourself permission to reset. You stop running on autopilot and start asking real questions. Who am I becoming? What needs to change? What am I tolerating that's weakening me? These reflections require solitude. Growth doesn't happen when you're constantly entertaining the crowd. The problem with staying visible during transformation is that too many opinions get involved. People project their fears onto your process. They tell you what's realistic, what's possible, what's too much. But when you disappear, you remove that noise. You build without permission. You sharpen without distraction. Rebuilding in private allows you to fail quietly. You can experiment, make mistakes, and recalibrate without the pressure of public failure. This kind of failure is productive. It's controlled. It's part of the process. And because it's private, you're more willing to take risks that lead to massive growth. Disappearing doesn't mean you've quit, it means you've committed. It means you're focusing on the internal before returning to the external. You're choosing the foundation over the facade. It's not about hiding, it's about constructing something stronger before you present it to the world. When you step back, you regain clarity. The constant noise of the world clouds your vision. When you disconnect, you remember why you started. You reconnect with your core values, your true goals, and your authentic path. This clarity is only available when you remove the distractions. Disappearing protects your energy. Every interaction, every conversation, every social engagement drains or builds you. When you're rebuilding, you need that energy for yourself. You need it for your mind, your body, and your spirit. Guarding your energy during this phase is not selfish, it's survival. Most people are addicted to being seen. They fear silence because it feels like insignificance. But significance isn't built in the spotlight, it's built in the shadows. When you disappear to work on yourself, you come back with a presence that speaks louder than words. The results make the noise for you. Rebuilding in private teaches you patience. You stop looking for instant validation. You're no longer chasing likes, applause, or external acknowledgement. You learn to enjoy the process. You build slow, steady, and solid. And because of that, your foundation doesn't crack when life tests you. When you disappear, you give yourself space to cut dead weight. People, habits, thoughts, you can assess what's holding you back and let it go without explanation. This pruning process is essential. You can't grow new branches if you're still carrying dead ones. Solitude makes this decision easier. Privacy breeds discipline. With no one watching, you have two choices: slack off or lock in. The man who chooses discipline in the dark becomes unstoppable in the light. You build the habit of execution without applause. That habit becomes your default, not because you're being watched, but because it's who you are. Stepping back helps you heal. Sometimes you don't need advice, you need silence. You need time to process pain, rebuild confidence, and reset your mindset. The world is not always the safest place for healing. Solitude is where you patch your wounds without judgment, without pressure, and without performance. When you disappear, you remove comparison. Social media, society, and peers create constant pressure to measure your life against others. But when you're in your own lane, privately working, you stop comparing timelines. You start respecting your own pace. This eliminates unnecessary stress. Rebuilding in private lets you refine your skills. Whether it's physical, mental, or spiritual work, you can drill your weaknesses without judgment. You can practice until the skill is embedded into your system. By the time you return to the world, your improvement is undeniable because you've already done the work in silence. Disappearing protects your vision. Not everyone needs to understand your goals. Sharing them too soon invites doubt and unsolicited advice. Some visions need to be nurtured in private until they're too strong to be shaken by opinions. When you disappear, you give your vision time to grow roots. Private growth strengthens your relationship with yourself. You learn to enjoy your own company. You stop needing constant connection to feel validated. You develop a deeper sense of peace, one that comes from knowing you're doing the work even when no one is watching. That self-trust is rare and powerful. When you finally return after private rebuilding, you don't need to announce it. Your presence will speak for itself. Your discipline, your results, your energy, they'll all reveal the work you did in the dark. You become the type of man who doesn't talk about change, embodies it. Disappearing allows you to recalibrate your priorities. You step away from the world's expectations and ask yourself what really matters. Is it legacy, purpose, peace, power? You design your life from the inside out, not from the outside in. This creates a life aligned with truth, not trend. Private growth is the foundation of quiet power. You don't need to prove anything during this phase. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're focused on mastery. And mastery isn't built in publicits, built in the hours no one sees, in the moments when you choose discipline over distraction. So if you feel the urge to disappear for a while, honor it. Use that time to rebuild, to sharpen, and to evolve. When you come back, you won't be the same. You'll be better, stronger, quieter, but the results will speak louder than anything you could ever say. When you disappear to rebuild, you're no longer influenced by the fear of being judged in real time. The world won't see your mistakes. It won't witness your rough drafts. This gives you the freedom to experiment, fail forward, and refine your process without the burden of public opinion slowing you down. Stepping away allows you to detach from toxic attachments. Sometimes you don't realize how draining certain people or situations are until you step back. Distance reveals the truth. You start to see who fuels your growth and who silently stunts it. Rebuilding in private gives you clarity on who should be allowed in your next chapter. Privacy protects your momentum. When you share your plans too soon, you invite resistance both from others and from your own mind. Talking about goals can create a false sense of accomplishment, tricking you into feeling like you've already arrived. Silence keeps you hungry. It keeps you moving. Some phases of life require disappearing because visibility can create unnecessary pressure. When you're under construction, you don't need spectators. You need focus. You need freedom from expectations so you can redesign yourself without having to explain every move. When you vanish from the crowd, you realize how much of your life was built around their opinions. You see how often you made decisions to impress, to belong, or to avoid judgment. Disappearing strips that away. It gives you a clean slate to rebuild from authenticity, not approval. The process of disappearing isn't always physical, it's mental too. You might still show up to work, still fulfill obligations, but internally you withdraw from the distractions. You stop consuming empty content. You stop engaging in pointless conversations. You turn inward, where the real work happens. In private, you reconnect with your original purpose. Before life got loud, before expectations stacked up, there was a reason you started this path. Solitude helps you remember that reason. It reignites the inner fire that gets buried under the weight of daily distractions. You learn to enjoy the quiet. At first, the silence feels heavy. You might feel restless, tempted to return to comfort zones. But the longer you stay in the stillness, the more you start to appreciate it. You realize that peace is power. And that power doesn't come from chaos, it comes from calm. Disappearing is how you break the addiction to urgency. Not every moment requires reaction. Not every notification needs a response. When you step back, you train your nervous system to settle. You build patience, strategy, and long-term thinking. That mental shift changes everything. You also develop humility during private rebuilding. When you disappear, you realize you're not as indispensable as you thought. The world keeps spinning without you. This realization removes ego and replaces it with focus. You stop trying to be everywhere and start mastering where you are. Disappearing teaches you that real transformation is not glamorous. It's not exciting. It's repetition. It's failure. It's lonely nights of practice and quiet mornings of discipline. It's building without recognition. But that's where the real shift happens, in the boring, consistent grind that no one sees. Private growth resets your priorities. You start to see how much time you wasted on distractions that didn't matter. The separation gives you perspective. You realize what deserves your energy and what drains it. When you return, you move differently because your priorities have been realigned. When you rebuild in silence, you avoid the trap of overexposure. Sometimes, being too visible too soon can attract envy, negativity, or unnecessary competition. Privacy shields you from that. It lets you grow without extra weight, without extra noise, and without interference. Isolation also amplifies your awareness. You become hypersensitive to your own thoughts, patterns, and emotions. This awareness helps you make faster adjustments. You catch your own excuses. You correct your own laziness. You refine yourself before the world ever has a chance to critique you. You don't owe the world an explanation for your silence. Growth doesn't require announcements. When you choose to disappear, you don't have to justify it. Your future results will do the talking. Your new level of discipline, focus, and energy will be louder than any explanation you could give. During the rebuilding phase, you learn the value of delayed gratification. You sacrifice comfort today for power tomorrow. You resist the urge to show progress too early because you understand that true strength takes time. You're building something long-lasting, not something temporary. You also learn to listen better when you're alone, not to others, but to yourself. You reconnect with your instincts, your gut feelings, your intuition. The voice inside you becomes clearer because it's no longer drowned out by the opinions of the crowd. You begin to trust yourself again. Private work eliminates the ego trap. When no one's watching, there's no room for false confidence. There's just the work, the repetition, the struggle. And that struggle humbles you while it strengthens you. It builds real confidence, the fake kind that comes from praise, but the unshakable kind that comes from competence. When you finally reappear, you're not looking for applause, you're looking for impact. You've already validated yourself in private. You've already earned your own respect. Now, you move with quiet certainty. The world will notice, but you won't need it to. You're walking proof of private work done right. Chapter 6. No one is coming, and that's good. At first, realizing that no one is coming to save you feels like a harsh truth. It's uncomfortable. It forces you to face the weight of your own life. But once that truth sinks in, it becomes liberating. You stop waiting for someone to fix your problems. You stop hoping for rescue. You realize that you are the solution, and that realization changes everything. The world teaches you to depend. Depend on systems. Depend on people. Depend on timing. But true growth starts when you break that pattern. When you stop looking outside yourself for rescue, you turn inward and activate a different kind of power, the kind that doesn't need permission, help, or applause. No one is coming to build your discipline. No one is coming to force you to get up early, to stick to your goals, or to face your weaknesses. That work is yours alone, and that's good. Because when you own the process, you own the results. You're no longer a victim of life, you become the architect of it. Waiting for someone to push you is dangerous because it creates dependency. What happens when the coach isn't there? What happens when the support system leaves? A man who relies on others for motivation will crumble when left alone. But a man who trains himself to act without external pressure is bulletproof. You might think you need more guidance, more mentorship, more help, but most of the time, you need more self-leadership. You already know what needs to be done. You've read the books. You've heard the advice. The issue isn't knowledge, it's execution. And execution is your responsibility, not someone else's. Once you realize no one is coming, you stop negotiating with laziness. You understand that you can't afford to sit still and wait for conditions to improve. The conditions won't change until you do. And when you take that first step alone, you set a new standard for yourself that no one else can lower. No one is coming to build your emotional strength. The world will keep spinning whether you complain or not. Life won't pause to heal your wounds. That's your job. Healing is a solo mission. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you can stop suffering and start rebuilding into something stronger. There's freedom in knowing that no one owes you anything. It removes entitlement. It strips away expectations. When you stop expecting help, you stop being disappointed when it doesn't come. And when you stop being disappointed, you regain control over your mind, your actions, and your outcomes. Most people waste years waiting for the right moment. They wait for life to become easier, for people to support them, for opportunities to fall in their lap. But the truth is, those things rarely happen. And when you accept that, you stop waiting and start creating. You stop hoping and start building. No one is coming to validate your goals. If you need applause before you move, you'll stay stuck forever. Your dreams don't require consensus, they require commitment. And once you commit, you realize you never needed their approval in the first place. You just needed your own. It's easy to blame others for your stagnation. It's easy to say, they didn't support me, or they held me back. But blame is a trap. It keeps you powerless. The moment you accept that no one is responsible for your growth but you reclaim your life. That ownership makes you dangerous in the best way. When you stop waiting for help, you become resourceful. You start figuring things out on your own. You develop problem-solving skills that most people never touch because they're too busy waiting for guidance. You build creativity, resilience, and independence, qualities that turn ordinary men into leaders. No one is coming to rescue you from bad habits. If you keep sabotaging yourself, that's on you. No coach, no friend, no mentor can rewire your mind if you're not willing to do it yourself. The moment you realize that, you stop lying to yourself. You face your patterns, and you break them alone. Facing life alone doesn't mean you can't have allies. It means you don't rely on them to move forward. You don't make progress conditional on their support. You lead yourself first. And from that position of strength, you can build healthier connections because they're based on choice, not need. When you stop expecting rescue, you start seeing your own strength. You realize you've survived things you once thought would break you. You remember the times you got back up when no one noticed. That track record becomes your evidence. It reminds you that you're capable of handling whatever comes next. This mindset shift removes fear. You stop being afraid of being left alone because you know you can handle solitude. You stop fearing rejection because you know you won't collapse without approval. You stop fearing change because you know you've adapted before and you'll do it again. No one is coming to give you purpose. You have to build that on your own. Purpose isn't found, it's created. It's built in silence, in discipline, in choosing to do hard things without being forced. And when you build your own purpose, it can't be taken from you because it wasn't given by anyone else. Once you accept that no one is coming, you also stop waiting for motivation. You understand that motivation is optional, but movement is necessary. You move because it's who you are now, not because you feel like it. That shift creates unstoppable momentum. At first, this realization feels heavy, but over time, it becomes the most empowering truth of your life. You don't have to wait anymore. You don't have to hope someone will rescue you. You don't have to beg for a better life. You get to build it with your own hands, on your own terms. No one is coming, and that's good. Because now you know, you are the rescue. You are the breakthrough. You are the answer you've been waiting for. And once you realize that, No setback, no silence, and no solitude can stop you. When you fully grasp that no one is coming, you stop wasting time explaining your struggles to people who don't understand them. You learn that venting is not a strategy, action is. Conversations might feel good for a moment, but nothing changes until you make moves. Talking won't fix your libidoing will. Most people want someone else to solve their problems because it feels safer. If you fail after doing it yourself, the responsibility is yours. But that's the point. Taking full responsibility removes the option to blame, and that makes you sharper. It forces you to rise instead of rationalizing your failure. Knowing that no one is coming also builds your decision-making power. You stop overthinking because you realize no one else has the answers for you. You make the best choice with the information you have and adjust along the way. This builds courage. This builds leadership. You become decisive through necessity. When you stop looking for external rescue, you start trusting your gut. Instinct sharpens when you use it. Over time, your inner compass gets stronger because you've trained it, not because someone else pointed you in the right direction. This makes you faster, more adaptable, and less dependent on opinions. You also develop grit when you face life alone. It's easy to keep going when people cheer for you. It's much harder when there's silence. But pushing through in that silence builds something unteachable, the ability to grind without glory. The man who can do that will always outlast the one who needs praise. When you realize no one is coming, you stop waiting for ideal circumstances. You stop saying, "I'll start when." You start now, with what you have, from where you are. The conditions are never perfect, and they don't have to be. Progress is built by people who start in the middle of the storm. Self-reliance also forces you to become your own teacher. You start reading more, learning more, experimenting more. You don't wait for someone to hand you knowledge, you go hunt for it. This makes you more competent than those who sit idle, waiting for the next lesson to fall in their lap. No one is coming to discipline you, so you discipline yourself. You create structure in your day. You enforce your own standards. This is what separates winners from wishers. The self-disciplined man doesn't need reminders to execute. He's programmed to do the work, regardless of circumstance. Accepting that no one is coming also builds mental toughness in the face of rejection. You understand that not everyone will believe in you, and that's fine. Belief starts with you. If you need external validation to move, you'll stay stuck. But when you validate yourself, you become immune to doubt. There's no comfort in this realization at first, but there is freedom. Freedom from expectation, freedom from disappointment, freedom from waiting for someone to notice your potential. You don't need to be discovered. You need to discover yourself. That's where the real shift happens. Facing life alone teaches you how to protect your energy. You stop engaging in unnecessary drama. You stop explaining your every move. You stop defending your path. When you know it's on you, you conserve your time and focus for what matters. Everything else becomes background noise. When no one is coming, your patience strengthens. You understand that lasting change takes time. Since you're no longer rushing for approval or applause, you can build slow, strong, and steady. You don't look for shortcuts, you look for foundations. And strong foundations don't crumble. You also realize that most people are too busy saving themselves to save you. Everyone has battles you don't see. Waiting for rescue ignores this fact. When you accept that everyone's fighting their own war, you stop expecting them to carry yours. That makes you respect their journey and own yours. When you stop waiting for rescue, you stop looking for shortcuts. You understand that there is no magic plan, no secret mentor, no overnight fix. It's just work. daily, consistent, unglamorous work. And when you embrace that, you stop wasting time chasing hacks and start building real habits. This mindset makes you unstoppable because you no longer quit when things get hard. You expect it to be hard. You embrace the difficulty because you know that growth comes through struggle, not comfort. You're not shocked by resistance, you're prepared for it. That preparation is rare. No one is coming to stop you from making excuses. That's your job. You either justify why you're stuck or you do something about it. Both options are available every day. But when you accept full ownership, you choose progress over pity. That choice rewrites your identity over time. Facing life alone sharpens your focus. You stop multitasking your goals. You zone in on what matters. You pick one path and walk it with discipline. No distractions, no detours, no debating. Just relentless execution. That kind of focus makes you dangerous to mediocrity. When you realize no one is coming, you learn to celebrate small wins privately. You don't need to post about every step. You don't need applause for every action. Your growth becomes your reward. And when growth is the goal, you never run out of reasons to keep going. In the end, the hardest pill to swallow becomes the most freeing. No one is coming, and that's good. Because now you know where the power is. It's in you. Not in someone else's help. Not in someone else's timeline. It's in your hands, and it always has been. Chapter 7. Mental toughness in isolation. Mental toughness isn't built when life is easy. It's built in isolation. When you're alone with your thoughts, without distractions or validations, you face the raw version of yourself. It's in those moments that you either break or build. And if you choose to build, you come out of isolation with a mind stronger than most people will ever understand. Isolation removes the safety net. No one is there to catch you when you fall. No one is there to remind you of your goals or clap for your small wins. You must become your own motivator, your own guide, your own coach. That process may be lonely, but it creates resilience. Most people never develop. When you're alone, the mental games begin. Doubt whispers louder. Fear shows up more often. Your mind will try to convince you to quit because quitting feels easier when no one is watching. But if you can push through that mental chatter, you build an inner strength that can't be taught, it can only be earned. Isolation teaches you how to sit with discomfort. Most people avoid being alone because they don't like facing their own thoughts. But the man who can sit in silence without losing his focus becomes dangerous. He's not running from his mind, he's mastering it, and that mastery carries over into every part of life. Mental toughness isn't about pretending to be unbreakable. It's about learning how to rebuild quickly when life hits you. Isolation is where you practice that. You fall, you get back up, you fall again. Each time, you shorten the recovery time. You train your mind to respond, not react. In solitude, you learn how to manage your emotions. There's no one around to calm you down or talk you out of overthinking. You have to do that for yourself. You learn to regulate your inner world, to catch negative spirals before they control you. That emotional discipline becomes your armor. Isolation also teaches you patience. Growth is slow, discipline is boring. The real work happens in repetitive, unexciting moments. But when you stop chasing quick results, you start focusing on consistency. Over time, that patience builds a foundation no setback can destroy. You become mentally tough in isolation because you face the truth about yourself. There's no pretending when you're alone. You see your weaknesses clearly. You notice your excuses. And instead of running from them, you attack them. You turn isolation into your training ground, not your prison. Most people fold under silence. They can't handle the lack of stimulation, so they distract themselves with entertainment, social media, or pointless conversations. But if you embrace the silence, you become sharper. You develop clarity that others don't have because they've never sat still long enough to find it. Isolation reveals your habits. When no one is around to correct you, do you still stick to the routine? Do you still wake up early, train, read, reflect? Or do you drift? The man who can hold the line alone is the man who stays disciplined when life gets chaotic. That's true toughness. Mental toughness in isolation also means learning how to handle boredom without quitting. Success often requires doing the same things over and over. Repetition is where mastery lives. If you need constant novelty, you'll never last long enough to see the results. Isolation teaches you how to focus, even when it's not exciting. Solitude forces you to become your own source of strength. You stop looking outward for someone to save you or motivate you. You learn how to access your own power, how to create your own drive. That independence makes you dangerous because no one can take away what you've built for yourself. In isolation, you also learn the value of controlling your environment. You can't control the world, but you can control your room, your mind, and your routine. You make small, consistent decisions that reinforce who you're becoming. You clean your space, control your diet, guard your time. Those micro-disciplines stack into mental strength. Mental toughness means not folding when the results are delayed. In isolation, there's no applause for daily discipline. There's no immediate payoff. But you keep going anyway because you've trained your mind to value progress over praise. That shift makes you unstoppable over time. Isolation also exposes whether you're working for attention or for mastery. If you're only driven when people notice, you'll fall apart when no one's watching. But if you're driven by personal excellence, you'll thrive in solitude. You'll keep building quietly because you're chasing skill, not status. Mental toughness requires that you learn to lead yourself. In isolation, there's no one telling you what to do. You must create your own structure. You become the boss of your mind, the captain of your actions. And once you master that, no outside force can shake you easily. Being alone gives you the chance to reset your mindset. You evaluate your beliefs, your standards, and your goals without outside interference. You decide who you want to become, not based on the crowd's opinion, but based on your own inner code. That self-alignment becomes a superpower. Isolation teaches you that success is lonely at first. Not because you're cut off from the world, but because most people don't understand the level of discipline it takes. They won't see the nights you spend sharpening your mind, but you're not building for their understanding, you're building for your own evolution. Finally, mental toughness in isolation creates quiet confidence. You no longer need to prove yourself because you've already done the work in private. You walk differently, move differently, and think differently not because you're pretending, but because you've trained in silence and survived the test of solitude. Isolation forces you to wrestle with the parts of yourself you usually avoid. In the silence, insecurities surface, regrets resurface. But instead of running from them, you finally have the chance to face them head-on. That confrontation builds strength. It turns weakness into wisdom and fear into fuel. When you're alone, you learn the art of mental endurance. It's not about avoiding difficulty. It's about staying steady when difficulty arrives. In isolation, you train your mind to handle pressure without folding. This becomes a superpower when you return to the world, because most people panic at the first sign of struggle. Solitude is where you build the habit of self-correction. Without anyone to check you, you must check yourself. You notice when you're slacking. You call yourself out when you're slipping. This internal accountability is rare, and it's what separates disciplined men from the ones who constantly need supervision. One of the hardest lessons in isolation is learning to manage your mind when nothing exciting is happening. There are no rewards, no recognition, just repetition. But that's where consistency is forged. Doing the work, even when it's boring, conditions you to become the kind of person who follows through no matter what. In isolation, you become comfortable with silence. You stop needing background noise to fill the room because you've learned to quiet the chaos inside. That silence becomes your ally, not your enemy. It gives you room to think clearly, to plan strategically, and to operate without panic. Mental toughness also means controlling your impulses. In isolation, there's no one watching to hold you accountable. No one will know if you break your diet, skip your workout, or waste your time scrolling. But you'll know, and that's enough. You train yourself to act with integrity, even when it's inconvenient. Solitude sharpens your self-awareness. You start noticing your patterns. You realize what triggers you, what distracts you, and what motivates you. That knowledge helps you make better decisions. You stop running on autopilot and start operating with precision. Awareness is the first step to mastery. In isolation, you find out how committed you really are. It's easy to say you want discipline when people are watching. It's harder when you're the only witness to your actions. The man who stays disciplined when no one's watching is the man who will succeed when life gets loud again. Time alone teaches you how to be efficient with your focus. You realize how much energy you used to waste on meaningless things. Now, every minute matters. You cut out distractions, organize your day, and attack your goals with purpose. Isolation teaches you how to manage your time like a professional. Isolation also teaches you how to be alone without feeling lonely. There's a difference. Being alone is physical, loneliness is emotional. When you master your mind, you can sit by yourself and still feel whole. You no longer seek people to fill a void. You build a life so complete that solitude feels like peace. Mental toughness is forged in discomfort. Isolation gives you plenty of that. It tests your limits, exposes your weaknesses, and stretches your patience. But instead of breaking, you bend. You adapt, you grow. Every time you endure discomfort without quitting, you raise your threshold for pressure. In solitude, you learn how to reset your emotions quickly. When anger rises, you process it. When sadness hits, you observe it without getting stuck. You don't let emotions control your actions. You let them pass through you while staying focused on the mission. That control is rare, and it's earned in silence. Isolation reveals the difference between being busy and being productive. When you're alone, there's no one to impress with fake effort. You see clearly whether you're actually moving forward or just staying distracted. That honesty forces you to refine your strategy and execute with precision. In the quiet, you also develop mental flexibility. Life won't always go your way. Plans will change. Challenges will come. But when you've trained alone, you've learned to adjust without losing momentum. You don't crumble under unexpected shifts. You adapt and continue. Solitude teaches you that not everything needs a reaction. Some things are better left alone. Some conflicts aren't worth your energy. You conserve your mental power for what truly matters. That restraint isn't weakness, it's wisdom, and it's cultivated in the space where no one can provoke you. When you train your mind in isolation, you no longer fear being misunderstood. Most people won't understand your discipline, your silence, or your focus. That's okay. You're not building for their approval, you're building for personal evolution. That kind of mindset is rare and unshakable. Isolation sharpens your ability to stay present. You're not constantly thinking about what others are doing. You're not comparing yourself to anyone. You're focused on your own lane, your own goals, your own progress. That tunnel vision makes you faster, stronger, and more consistent. Mental toughness also means being comfortable starting over. In solitude, you'll fail. You'll make mistakes. But you'll also learn how to reset without shame. You won't give up, you'll recalibrate. You'll adjust your strategy, tighten your focus, and come back stronger. That resilience is priceless. In the end, isolation is not a punishment, it's a test. And if you pass that test, you'll come out on the other side with a mind that's unbreakable. You'll be the kind of man who doesn't need applause, support, or outside motivation to keep going. You'll be powered by something deeper: self-mastery. Chapter 8. Use pain as construction material. Pain is not just something to survive, it's something to build with. Most people try to avoid pain, numb it, or run from it. But the man who learns to use pain as construction material becomes unstoppable. He understands that pain is part of the process, not the enemy of it. It's the fuel that forges strength. Every scar you carry can either be an excuse or a lesson. The choice is yours. You can let the pain define you, or you can let it refine you. When you shift your mindset from victim to builder, you realize pain is raw material. It's heavy, yes, but it's also useful. You can mold it into something powerful. Pain sharpens your perspective. It teaches you what matters and what doesn't. It removes the superficial and forces you to focus on what's real. Comfort makes you soft. Pain makes you pay attention. It wakes you up, shakes you out of autopilot, and demands that you evolve. If you don't use your pain, it will use you. It will trap you in cycles of anger, regret, and self-pity. But when you channel it into something productive, you transform it. You turn it from a weight that crushes you into a weight that strengthens you. Pain can break you down, or it can build you up. The greatest achievements are often born from the deepest pain. People who have suffered and survived usually create the most powerful change, because they were lucky, but because they had no other option but to grow. Pain forced them to rise. It gave them no choice but to evolve. Pain teaches discipline faster than comfort ever will. When you've suffered, you know what it costs to be careless. You know the price of laziness, of distraction, of weakness. That memory becomes part of your system. It reminds you why you can't afford to slip. It keeps you sharp when comfort tries to dull you. There's a certain clarity that only comes through hardship. When life hits you hard, you realize how strong you actually are. Most people don't know their real strength because they've never been pushed to the edge. But once you've been there and survived, you move differently. You carry quiet power. Pain also teaches you humility. It reminds you that you're not invincible. It humbles your ego. But that's not a weakness, it's an advantage. Because once you know what pain feels like, you develop compassion for others, and you stop pretending to be perfect. You become more real, more raw, more human. Using pain as construction material requires that you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" Pain is not personal, it's part of life. The real question is, what will you build with it? Will you let it harden you into bitterness? Or will you let it shape you into someone stronger, wiser, and more focused? When you build with pain, you stop fearing it. You realize it's not the end of the road, it's the beginning of a new chapter. Pain becomes your teacher, not your tormentor. Every lesson carved into you by suffering becomes a tool you can use to help others, lead better, and make smarter decisions. Pain can make you angry, that's normal, but you have a choice. Use that anger destructively or use it constructively. Channel it into training, channel it into focus, channel it into action. Let it push you to the next level, not pull you down into negativity. When you've been through real pain, little problems stop bothering you. You develop a new threshold for discomfort. What used to shake you no longer moves you. You become resilient because you've faced worse. That resilience is built, not born, and it's forged in the fire of suffering. Pain teaches you about endurance. It shows you that you can keep going when you thought you couldn't. Every time you push through pain without quitting, you expand your limits. You stop believing in your old boundaries. You realize you can do more, last longer, and carry heavier loads than you once imagined. There's a wisdom that pain gives you if you're willing to listen. It teaches you patience. It teaches you strategy. It teaches you how to move carefully, think deeply, and act intentionally. People who have never suffered often move recklessly, but the man who's been through pain moves with precision. Using pain as fuel requires mental alchemy. You turn something negative into something positive. You don't deny the hurt. You don't pretend it didn't happen. But you choose to extract the lesson, keep the strength, and discard the poison. That's how you convert pain into power. Pain creates hunger. Once you've been to rock bottom, you don't want to stay there. You become motivated to rise, to build, to improve. That hunger makes you dangerous because you're no longer comfortable with mediocrity. You've seen the other side, and you don't want to go back. Pain also teaches you how to protect your energy. When you've been burned, you learn where not to place your trust. You develop boundaries. You stop letting just anyone into your life. You become selective, not out of fear, but out of wisdom gained through painful lessons. Every challenge you faced is a brick. You can either let it sit on your chest and suffocate you, or you can use it to build a foundation. Stack the lessons, stack the scars, stack the experiences. Over time, you'll find you've built something unshakable, a fortress of resilience. In the end, pain is not the enemy, it's the material. Life will hand you struggle, loss, and hardship. But you decide what to do with it. Build with it, train with it, evolve through it. Use pain as construction material and watch yourself become something no struggle can destroy. Pain is life's way of handing you raw energy. It's uncomfortable, but it's powerful. You can choose to waste it by complaining, or you can convert it into motion. That's the difference between staying stuck and moving forward. Energy is energy. Whether it's joy or pain, the question is, how will you use it? Some of the strongest minds in history were forged in hardship. Pain taught them lessons comfort never could. When you go through something difficult, you gain perspective. You stop fearing life's small setbacks because you've already survived much worse. Pain teaches you to stop flinching. When you use pain as fuel, you develop consistency. Pain makes you realize the cost of inaction. You've felt the regret of procrastination. You've tasted the bitterness of missed opportunities. That memory lights a fire under you. It drives you to stay consistent because you don't want to repeat that suffering. Pain teaches you how to recalibrate quickly. Life won't always go according to plan. Loss, betrayal, failure, they happen. But if you've learned to use pain, you don't freeze when these moments come. You adjust, you learn, you pivot, and because of that, you stay moving while others get stuck. When you choose to build with pain, you stop fearing failure. Pain has already visited you. It's already knocked you down. And since you survived, you're no longer terrified of falling. That freedom allows you to take risks, try new things, and grow in ways you never would have in comfort. There's a level of focus that only pain creates. When you've been through something heavy, you stop wasting time. You stop entertaining distractions. You stop giving energy to things that don't build you. Pain teaches you urgency, not the rushed kind, but the disciplined, intentional kind. Pain strips away illusion. It shows you who your real friends are. It exposes fake support. It reveals who shows up when things fall apart. That knowledge is painful at first, but it sharpens your circle. You become wiser about who you trust and who you invest in moving forward. Building with pain also strengthens your gratitude. After suffering, you appreciate the simple things more deeply. A calm moment. A real friend. A healthy day. Pain reminds you that life can change fast, so you learn to find strength in gratitude, and not as a weakness, but as armor against bitterness. Pain also reveals your real potential. Most people think they know how strong they are until life tests them. When you've pushed through pain, you find out you're capable of more than you thought. That new baseline becomes your standard. You no longer see limitations the same way. Using pain as construction material requires that you stop identifying with it. You are not your pain, you are the builder using that pain. If you label yourself by your wounds, you stay trapped. But if you treat pain as material, you stay in control. You decide how to use it, shape it, and grow from it. When life hits you hard, you can either break down or break through. Most people break down because they think pain is a punishment. But the man who sees pain as preparation builds something stronger. He views the struggle as part of the blueprint, not as a sign to quit. Pain changes your standards. When you've been hurt, you stop tolerating certain behaviors. You set higher boundaries, demand more from yourself, and protect your time. That shift is painful, but it's necessary. Growth hurts because it forces you to evolve past comfort. Some of the most powerful leaders lead from scars, not just success. Their wisdom comes from experience, not theory. They've been cut, bruised, and humbled by life. But instead of folding, they built something with the pain. That's why their leadership has weight. It's built on real struggle. Pain humbles your ego, but it also strengthens your spirit. It teaches you that life isn't always fair, but you can still build something great with unfair situations. You learn to stop crying about what you can't control and start constructing with what you have. That shift makes you dangerous to failure. Using pain to build teaches you patience with the process. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens in the small moments, the lonely nights, the silent mornings, the quiet battles no one sees. Pain reminds you to stay present in the process, because the process is where strength grows. Pain can also clarify your purpose. Sometimes you don't know why you're here until life knocks you down. When you suffer, you get honest about what matters. You drop the superficial goals and focus on what's real. Pain has a way of aligning you with your mission faster than comfort ever could. Building with pain also teaches resilience. It's not just about getting back up, it's about learning how to carry pain without letting it poison you. You walk with the lessons, not the bitterness. You turn the hurt into strategy, the loss into wisdom, and the hardship into mental armor. Pain teaches you the value of persistence. When things get hard, you no longer ask, "Should I quit?" You ask, "How can I adjust?" That mindset keeps you in the game longer than most. Persistence isn't about perfection, it's about refusing to stop when things get uncomfortable. When you build with pain, you stop feeling sorry for yourself. You understand that life doesn't care about excuses. No one is coming to make it easier. That's not negativity, that's reality. And when you accept it, you free up energy to actually build, instead of constantly explaining why you can't. In the end, Pain is part of life. But suffering is optional when you use that pain wisely. Let the setbacks shape you, not shatter you. Let the failures forge you, not freeze you. Build something with the struggle you've been given. Use pain as construction material and create the strongest version of yourself. Pain has a way of revealing the gaps in your foundation. It shows you where you're weak, where you're unprepared, where you've been coasting. That exposure might sting, but it's useful. It gives you a blueprint of what to fix. Pain points are not roadblocks. They're markers telling you where to reinforce. When you use pain properly, you stop asking for life to be easier. Instead, you ask for the strength to become better. You stop hoping for comfort and start preparing for reality. Life won't remove challenges for you, but it will equip you with lessons if you're willing to listen. Pain is one of the sharpest teachers. Building with pain creates discipline because it removes the luxury of quitting. Once you've felt deep failure or loss, you realize starting over is harder than pushing forward, so you commit to the grind. You lock in. You stick to the process not because it's easy, but because you know the cost of letting yourself go backward. Pain teaches you to become strategic. You don't just react emotionally anymore. You think about your next move carefully. You analyze your mistakes. You become surgical with your adjustments. This mindset removes recklessness and replaces it with precision, a skill only forged in hard times. When you build with pain, you stop living in denial. You face the hard facts about your life, your habits, and your character. No more sugarcoating, no more blaming others. You get real with yourself. And once you do that, you gain the power to change things because you're no longer avoiding the truth. Pain doesn't disappear when you build with it, it transforms. The same energy that once made you weak now becomes the fuel for your progress. You stop running from discomfort and start using it as momentum. Pain no longer paralyzes you, it propels you. When life hits you, you have two options: collapse or construct. Most people collapse because they believe pain is the end, but the man who chooses to construct builds a new life from the rubble. He picks up the broken pieces and creates something stronger than what existed before. Using pain as material also gives you depth. You become someone who understands suffering, not just someone who talks about it. This makes you more relatable to others in pain because you've lived it. You've walked through fire and came out sharper, not softer. Pain clarifies your focus. When life is easy, distractions feel harmless. But when you're hurting, you realize you don't have time for games. You prioritize differently. You stop chasing shallow goals. You lock in on what's essential because pain has taught you how fragile time really is. Every painful experience adds another layer to your character if you choose to build with it. Each loss, betrayal, or failure adds texture to who you are. That texture becomes armor. It makes you unshakable because you've already survived things most people fear. Building with pain trains you to create under pressure. Life won't always give you ideal conditions to succeed. Sometimes you have to make progress while bleeding. You have to build while tired. You have to keep moving when your mind says stop. That toughness isn't natural, it's constructed through pain. Pain teaches you how to control your reactions. When you've been through enough suffering, you stop panicking at small setbacks. You breathe, you think, you move strategically. You've been through worse, and knowing that makes you calmer, sharper, and harder to shake. Using pain also trains humility. You stop pretending to have it all together. You're not afraid to say, "I've struggled," because you've also learned how to rise. That humility keeps your ego in check. It keeps you coachable, adaptable, and always ready to improve. Pain teaches you to protect your peace. Once you've been broken, you become intentional about what you allow into your life. You don't entertain chaos or unnecessary drama anymore. You create space for growth, for healing, and for real progress, not distractions disguised as importance. Building with pain gives you emotional depth. You learn how to process your feelings without letting them control you. You can feel sadness without becoming weak. You can feel anger without becoming reckless. That emotional control is a direct result of battling with your own suffering and learning how to manage it. When you've built through pain, you walk with quiet confidence. You no longer need to prove yourself. You've already proven it in the dark, when no one was watching. You've survived storms that would have broken others, and that silent knowledge becomes part of your posture, calm, focused, unbothered. Using pain also sharpens your sense of purpose. You stop living life casually. You know what's at stake now. You've seen how fast life can change, so you build with urgency, not laziness. You're no longer just existing, you're constructing every day with intention. Pain teaches you to respect time. You realize you can't afford to waste days complaining or stuck in regret. You can't get lost in what-ifs. You have to build now. Every day becomes a brick, and you start stacking them, no matter how heavy they feel, because you know each brick matters. Finally, using pain as construction material changes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as a victim. You stop saying, "Why did this happen to me?" and start saying, "What can I build from this?" That shift turns you from passive to powerful. You don't just survive the pain, you use it to build the best version of yourself. Chapter 9. Emotional control is your superpower. Emotional control is the invisible force that separates weak men from strong men. It's not about suppressing your feelings, it's about managing them. Mastering your emotions is like mastering a weapon. If you don't know how to control it, it will destroy you. But when you harness it, it becomes your greatest advantage. Most people react emotionally to everything. They get angry too fast, they panic too soon, and they crumble under pressure. But a man who controls his emotions operates differently. He doesn't react, he responds. He thinks before he moves. He chooses his actions with strategy, not impulse. Emotional control makes you unpredictable to the world. People can't manipulate you because you're not easily triggered. They can't distract you because you're not chasing emotional highs or avoiding emotional lows. You're centered, and in a world of reaction, that makes you powerful. When you master emotional control, you don't get stuck in temporary feelings. You understand that emotions are just signals, not instructions. You can feel anger without acting out. You can feel fear without freezing. You can feel doubt without quitting. You observe the emotion, then make the best decision, not the emotional one. Emotional discipline turns you into a leader. People trust those who remain calm under pressure. They follow the man who doesn't fold in chaos. When others lose their heads, you keep yours. That composure builds respect. It makes you the steady hand when everything else shakes. Controlling your emotions also protects your energy. Emotional outbursts drain you. Overreacting burns mental fuel. But when you stay calm, you conserve power. You don't waste energy on things that don't deserve it. You move efficiently because your mind stays clear, focused, and deliberate. Emotional control makes you dangerous to weakness. Why? Because weakness feeds on chaos. It wants you to explode, collapse, or fall apart. But when you refuse to do that, you break the cycle. You choose discipline over drama. That decision sharpens your mind and keeps your spirit steady. You don't build emotional control overnight, it takes practice. You have to catch yourself before you react. You have to pause before you respond. At first, it feels unnatural, but the more you do it, the more automatic it becomes. You rewire your reactions into responses. That's how real transformation happens. When you control your emotions, you gain time. Emotional reactions are fast, but responses are strategic. The pause you take gives you a chance to think clearly. You make better decisions. You avoid regret. And that extra second of control changes outcomes you'll thank yourself for later. Most failures in life come from emotional decisions. People quit when they're frustrated. They lash out when they're hurt. They sabotage relationships, careers, and opportunities because they couldn't handle a moment of emotional discomfort. But emotional control eliminates those losses. Being calm under pressure isn't weakness, it's supreme strength. Anyone can explode when life gets hard. It takes real power to stay composed. That's why emotional control is a superpower. It gives you access to clarity when others are lost in chaos. You become the man who moves with precision, not panic. Emotional control also makes you harder to manipulate. The world tries to control you by provoking reactions. Marketing does it. Media does it. People do it. But when you stop reacting emotionally, you become free. You think for yourself. You choose your moves based on logic and mission, not manipulation. When you can master your emotions, you're no longer a slave to your environment. It doesn't matter what life throws at you, you stay centered. You adjust, but you don't collapse. You evolve, but you don't unravel. That inner stillness becomes your foundation. It turns you into the calm in every storm. Emotional control creates mental endurance. Life will test you again and again. If you break down every time, you'll never last. But if you can control your emotional state, you can outlast pressure. You'll find strength in staying steady while others burn out. That longevity is part of your power. You also build emotional control by embracing discomfort. When you practice staying calm in hard situations, you expand your capacity. You get better at handling stress. You get better at dealing with setbacks. Eventually, the things that used to shake you won't move you anymore. You'll have outgrown them. Control over your emotions also improves your relationships. When you respond with calmness, instead of reacting with anger, you reduce conflict. You communicate better. You listen more. You lead conversations instead of losing them. This builds stronger connections and deeper respect. When you master your emotions, you also master your mind. You learn how to stop the inner dialogue that spirals out of control. You can shut down thoughts that weaken you and replace them with thoughts that build you. That's not denial, it's direction. You choose where your mind goes. Emotional control protects your future. Decisions made in chaos usually lead to regret. But decisions made from calm reflection build the life you want. You stop burning bridges. You stop quitting on hard days. You stop making life-altering choices based on temporary feelings. That's how you win long-term. In the end, emotional control isn't about being cold, it's about being clear. You still feel everything, but you don't let feelings dictate your actions. You lead your emotions, they don't lead you. And once you master that, you become a different kind of man. Quiet, calm, disciplined and completely unshakable. Emotional control doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. It means you process them wisely. You acknowledge the emotion, understand its message, and then decide the next move with clarity. The weak man lets emotions take the wheel. The strong man feels everything but drives anyway, steering with discipline. When you control your emotions, you become immune to emotional bait. People will try to trigger you, to pull you into arguments, to provoke reactions for their own satisfaction. But when you remain calm, you stay in control of the situation. You rob manipulators of their power by refusing to react. Mastering emotional control also teaches you the power of silence. Not everything needs a response. Sometimes the strongest move is to say nothing, to let the moment pass, and to keep your energy intact. Silence is not weakness, it's restraint. And restraint is a sign of high-level mental control. Your emotional state directly impacts your focus. When you're emotionally chaotic, your mind is foggy. When you're steady, your focus sharpens. That's why emotional discipline is tied to productivity. The calmer your inner world, the more precise and powerful your outer actions become. Emotional control gives you stamina in life's battles. When others burn out from frustration or get paralyzed by fear, you stay consistent. You keep moving, not because you don't feel the stress, but because you've trained yourself to operate in spite of it. That endurance makes you unstoppable over time. Learning to manage your emotions helps you stop chasing comfort. Most emotional breakdowns come from an expectation that life should be easy. But once you accept that life will hurt sometimes, you stop being shocked by pain. Instead of breaking, you adjust. You adapt. You keep building. Emotional control turns you into a thinker, not a reactor. Most people react to situations without pausing to think. They move off of feelings, not logic. But the man who can pause, breathe, and calculate his response always wins the long game. He chooses strategy over emotion every time. When you control your emotions, you stop being driven by ego. You don't need to prove points. You don't need to win petty battles. You understand that protecting your peace is more valuable than proving you're right. This mindset keeps you focused on big goals, not small distractions. Mastering your emotions also helps you handle failure. Most people take failure personally. They spiral into shame or anger. But when you've trained emotional control, you view failure as feedback, not defeat. You learn, adjust, and keep going without letting emotions cloud your judgment. Emotional control is what allows you to build long-term vision. If you're ruled by emotions, you'll keep switching paths when things get tough. But when you stay calm, you stick to the plan. You don't jump ship because of momentary discomfort. You stay locked in until the mission is complete. A man who controls his emotions also controls his environment. He knows when to walk away from situations that drain his energy. He doesn't stay in toxic circles just to be polite. He removes himself from chaos before it becomes contagious. That's not avoidance, it's leadership of the self. Emotional discipline makes you less reactive to criticism. You don't crumble when someone challenges you. You listen, filter out what's useful, and discard the rest without letting it destroy your mood. This allows you to grow faster because you're not emotionally blocked by feedback. Your ability to stay calm under pressure makes you an asset to any team or family. People gravitate towards stability. When you control your emotions, you become a pillar for others. They trust you because they know you won't fold when things get heavy. That makes you a leader by default. Emotional control also helps you manage success. Winning can make people arrogant, reckless, or lazy. But when you stay emotionally grounded, you remain humble and hungry. You don't let praise inflate you or make you soft. You stay steady, knowing the work is never finished. In high-pressure moments, your emotional control determines whether you survive or thrive. Whether it's a fight, a business negotiation, or a personal crisis, the man who keeps his emotions steady will always outthink the one who panics. Calm minds make clear decisions. Panic creates chaos. Practicing emotional control rewires your nervous system. You train your body to stay relaxed under stress. Your breathing slows, your thoughts settle, your decisions improve. Over time, this rewiring becomes automatic. You stay cool in situations that once triggered anxiety or rage. When you're emotionally disciplined, you create better habits. You don't eat for comfort. You don't lash out when you're frustrated. You don't quit when you're tired. You stick to routines that build you because you've learned how to separate feeling from action. That's how you win long term. Emotional control protects your legacy. One emotional outburst can destroy years of hard work. One moment of weakness can burn bridges you spent years building. That's why you train restraint, not because you're scared, but because you respect the empire you're building too much to risk it. Finally, emotional control is not about being cold, it's about being composed. You still feel everything, but you don't let feelings make decisions for you. You lead your life with discipline, wisdom, and clarity. And when you master that, you become a man who's unshakable calm in chaos, steady under stress, and powerful beyond emotion. True, emotional control is not about avoiding feelings, it's about respecting them without being ruled by them. Emotions are messengers, but they are not masters. When you learn to receive the message without letting it dictate your life, you gain an inner calm that most men never experience. The man who controls his emotions is harder to provoke. People who seek chaos can't get a reaction out of him. He's too focused on his mission to waste time on petty arguments or unnecessary battles. This control makes him dangerous not because he's aggressive, but because he's disciplined. Emotional mastery helps you make sharper decisions under pressure. When emotions cloud your mind, you make mistakes you wouldn't normally make. But when you remain calm, you see situations clearly. You respond with strategy, not stress. And that clarity protects your progress. A man who controls his emotional state is always one step ahead. He can navigate conflict without losing his cool. He can handle disrespect without overreacting. He can move through life with patience, knowing that power belongs to the one who stays composed, not the one who explodes. Emotional control trains you to delay reactions. You don't respond immediately to every trigger. You take time to think, reflect, and consider the consequences of your actions. This pause gives you an advantage because it prevents regret and reinforces wisdom in every decision. Learning to control your emotions also means mastering self-talk. You catch yourself when you start thinking destructively. You shift the inner dialogue from panic to patience, from anger to understanding. This rewiring turns you into a man who speaks power to himself, not poison. When you regulate your emotions, you become harder to manipulate. The world preys on reactive people. Marketing, politics, and peer pressure all thrive on emotional triggers. But when you remain calm, you see through manipulation. You stay grounded in logic and don't get pulled off course. Emotional control sharpens your ability to listen. When you're not caught up in your own reactions, you actually hear what people are saying. You respond thoughtfully, not defensively. This skill improves relationships and makes you a better communicator, both personally and professionally. When you manage your emotions well, you naturally build resilience. Life can't knock you off course as easily because you've trained your mind to handle discomfort. You stop fearing adversity because you know you can face it without crumbling. That inner strength makes you nearly unbreakable. Emotional discipline also teaches you how to handle wins. Success can be just as dangerous as failure if it's not managed properly. Emotional control keeps you from becoming arrogant or complacent. It keeps you steady in victory, knowing that the work isn't over just because you've won once. In solitude, emotional control becomes even more important. When you're alone with your thoughts, you must learn to guide them, not let them spiral. You practice calming yourself down, staying focused, and reminding yourself of your vision. This private practice makes your public life more stable. Mastering emotions gives you power over your reactions to criticism. You don't internalize every negative comment. You evaluate the feedback logically. If it's helpful, you adjust. If it's noise, you ignore it. You don't let emotions drag you into pointless battles or self-sabotage. With emotional control, you stop apologizing for your boundaries. You know when to say no, when to walk away, and when to protect your peace. You don't feel guilty for prioritizing your mental state. You understand that without emotional health, you can't lead, grow, or sustain success. Emotional control gives you an edge in leadership. Whether it's in business, relationships, or life, people follow the person who stays calm under fire. You become the anchor when others drift. That steadiness builds trust, and trust builds influence. Influence builds lasting success. When you control your emotions, you don't get attached to outcomes. You work hard, but you stay detached from the need for things to happen a certain way. This detachment reduces anxiety because you're focused on effort, not just results. You stay in motion regardless of temporary wins or losses. Emotional control also helps you manage fear. Fear doesn't disappear, but you stop letting it freeze you. You feel it, acknowledge it, and act anyway. That's courage. And courage is not the absence of fear. It's the discipline to move forward while carrying fear without letting it control the outcome. You learn to handle jealousy and comparison better when you control your emotions. Instead of envying others, you focus on your own path. You understand that everyone's timeline is different. You stop wasting energy on what others have and channel that energy into building your own success. With emotional discipline, you also become more adaptable. When plans change, you don't panic. When life throws unexpected challenges, you don't collapse. You adjust, adapt, and keep going. Emotional flexibility is a skill, and it's built through controlled responses in unpredictable situations. Controlling your emotions leads to inner peace. You're no longer a slave to mood swings or emotional chaos. You can sit with yourself, calm and collected, knowing that you have the tools to handle whatever comes next. That peace becomes your power. It turns you into a man who can lead himself first, and others naturally follow. In the end, emotional control is the foundation of real strength. It's not about acting tough, it's about staying steady. It's about knowing that storms will come, but you've trained your mind to remain calm in the center of it all. That's not just a skill, it's a superpower. Chapter 10. Come back unrecognizable. Quiet mastery. There's a kind of growth that doesn't announce itself. It happens in silence, behind closed doors, when no one is watching. It's not about showing off your progress, it's about becoming someone so different, so sharpened, that when you return to the world, they don't even recognize you. That's quiet mastery. Quiet mastery is built when you disappear to work on yourself without telling anyone. You're not documenting the process for validation. You're not seeking attention during the transformation. You're focused on the grind, on the lessons, on the inner battle. And when you re-emerge, the results speak louder than words. Most people stay the same because they're addicted to being seen. They need to show the world every step, every rep, every little victory. But the real masters don't move like that. They work in private. They transform in silence. And when they come back unrecognizable, stronger, sharper, untouchable. Quiet mastery is about falling in love with the process, not the performance. You train when no one's clapping. You read when no one's watching. You discipline yourself in the dark, knowing that the light will come, but you don't chase it. You chase growth, not attention. When you commit to silent growth, you remove distractions. You're not worried about impressing anyone. You're not competing for approval. You're locked in on your own mission, building brick by brick until the foundation is unshakable. That kind of focus is rare, and it's powerful. Coming back unrecognizable means letting go of your old identity, the weak version of you, the lazy version, the distracted version that person has to die. You can't rebuild while holding on to who you used to be. Quiet mastery requires letting go, shedding old skins, and evolving without apology. The beauty of silent growth is that it protects your energy. You don't waste time explaining your moves. You don't engage in debates about your life choices. You just work. And because of that, you conserve power. You become efficient. You channel all your effort into actual transformation. When you come back after mastering yourself in private, people will wonder what happened. They'll ask how you changed so much. They won't understand the nights you spent alone, the mornings you woke up early, the silent battles you fought. They'll only see the outcome, not the journey. Quiet mastery is also about emotional control. You don't react to nonsense. You don't get pulled into petty conflicts. You move with calm precision, not ego. You choose silence over noise because you know the work you've done speaks louder than any argument or explanation ever could. The man who comes back unrecognizable doesn't need to announce his return. His energy speaks for him. His presence changes the room. He carries a quiet intensity, confidence that comes from knowing he's done the work, not from needing others to see it happen in real time. Silent transformation is humbling. You realize how much time you wasted before. You see how much energy you gave to things that didn't matter. But now you're different. You've refined your mind, sharpened your focus, and rebuilt your discipline. That change is permanent because it wasn't built for show. Quiet mastery creates freedom. You're no longer a slave to public opinion. You don't fear failure because you've already failed in private and learned from it. You don't fear judgment because you've already judged yourself and corrected your flaws. That inner work makes you untouchable. Coming back unrecognizable means you've evolved beyond your old limitations. The things that used to trigger you no longer faze you. The distractions that used to steal your time no longer interest you. You've outgrown the cycles that once trapped you. You've broken free silently. The real masters of life don't compete, they create. They don't flex, they execute. Quiet mastery is about walking into the world with new skills, new discipline, and new mental power. You don't need to prove anything, because your results prove everything. Your life becomes the evidence. When you train in silence, you learn to love solitude. You no longer fear being alone because you've made peace with yourself. That inner calm becomes part of your power. You don't chase noise. You don't chase people. You move with quiet confidence, knowing exactly who you are. Quiet mastery is not about perfection, it's about progress that no one sees until it's too big to ignore. It's about working silently, disappearing when necessary, and returning with results so massive they shock the people who doubted you. That's not arrogance, that's evolution. The man who comes back unrecognizable doesn't explain his glow-up. He doesn't justify his silence. He doesn't apologize for the distance he created during his growth. He just shows up, sharper, calmer, stronger, and lets the new version of himself do the talking. You don't owe anyone a front row seat to your transformation. Growth is not a spectator sport. It's private, personal, and often painful. But when you commit to quiet mastery, you stop living for applause and start living for alignment. And that's when everything changes. Come back unrecognizable, not because you want revenge, not because you need validation, but because you chose to evolve so deeply that the old you couldn't survive the process. That's mastery. That's power. And it's built in silence. When you come back unrecognizable, it's not just your appearance that changes, it's your energy. People can feel the difference before they even understand it. You carry yourself differently. Your silence has weight. Your focus is sharper. You don't need to explain your transformation because it's written all over your actions. Quiet mastery teaches you patience. You don't rush the process just to show off progress. You understand that real change takes time. It's built through daily discipline, not grand gestures. While others look for quick wins, you're building a foundation that will last for years. That's why your growth becomes undeniable. Disappearing to rebuild is uncomfortable. It means stepping away from distractions, leaving old friendships behind, and letting go of the need to be seen. But the discomfort is worth it because it creates space for real growth. You're not just changing habits, you're changing identity. The man who comes back unrecognizable has outgrown his excuses. He no longer says, "I'll start tomorrow." He no longer negotiates with weakness. He makes decisions quickly, follows through without hesitation, and doesn't look back. His mind has been upgraded from excuse-making to execution. Quiet mastery rewires your standards. You no longer tolerate things that drain you. You stop chasing what's easy and start embracing what's necessary. You stop wasting time on shallow conversations and start surrounding yourself with purpose. Your environment evolves with you. Coming back unrecognizable means you've closed the gap between who you were and who you're meant to be. The old you procrastinated, hesitated, and doubted. The new you moves with certainty, not because life is easier now, but because your mindset is stronger and your discipline is sharper. The process of quiet mastery builds inner wealth. You stop measuring success by material things alone. You value peace, focus, discipline, and growth. These are things money can't buy, but they're what make you powerful. Your richness comes from within, and no one can take it from you. When you return after private growth, you don't need to defend your new life. Some people won't understand your change, and that's fine. They were part of the old chapter. You're writing a new one now, and not everyone gets a seat at the table. Quiet mastery teaches you how to move without needing validation. One of the most powerful parts of silent transformation is that you no longer need motivation, you have momentum. You've built systems, habits, and routines that keep you going even on days you don't feel like it. That kind of consistency is rare, and it makes you unstoppable. Coming back unrecognizable isn't about proving anyone wrong, it's about proving yourself right. It's about keeping the promises you made to yourself in private. The late nights, the early mornings, the silent sacrifices, they all lead to a version of you that is undeniable when you return. Quiet mastery also sharpens your awareness. You see things differently now. You notice patterns others miss. You catch weaknesses early and correct them fast. Your mind operates on a higher level because you've trained it, disciplined it, and rebuilt it through solitude. When you build quietly, you develop humility. You don't need to broadcast your wins because you're too busy preparing for the next level. You understand that growth is infinite. There's always another layer to master, another skill to refine. That keeps you grounded and hungry. The man who comes back unrecognizable doesn't carry resentment for the people who doubted him. He carries lessons. He knows that doubt is fuel, criticism is motivation, and silence is protection. He moves with grace, knowing that the best revenge is self-evolution. Quiet mastery means you don't crumble under pressure anymore. You've trained in the dark, so when life throws chaos at you, you stay composed. You've practiced discipline when no one was watching, so now it's automatic. Calm under pressure becomes your normal state. When you return to the world after private growth, Your goals get bigger. You stop thinking small because you've already proven you can handle more. You no longer fear expansion, you welcome it. You seek out challenges because you've built the capacity to handle them. Coming back unrecognizable often means losing people. Not everyone will fit your new life, and that's okay. Quiet mastery teaches you how to release what no longer aligns without bitterness. You understand that growth requires space, and sometimes that space is created by letting go. The man who chooses quiet mastery is rare because he's not driven by ego, he's driven by evolution. He's not trying to be the loudest in the room, he's trying to be the sharpest. His power is silent, his moves are calculated, and his growth is undeniable. When you rebuild in private, you stop chasing trends and start mastering principles. You focus on discipline, patience, and consistency, the fundamentals that never fail. This is why your success lasts while others burn out chasing shortcuts. At the end of quiet mastery, you realize the journey was never about applause, it was about alignment. You rebuilt yourself because you refused to stay stuck in the old version of you. And now, when you come back unrecognizable, you don't need to say a word. Your life speaks for itself. When you commit to coming back unrecognizable, you step into a version of life that few dare to experience. You become someone who no longer waits for permission to change. You don't need the world to co-sign your transformation. You simply vanish, do the work, and return as someone who redefines the room without even speaking. Quiet mastery creates self-respect. There's a different kind of pride that comes from knowing you rebuilt yourself in private. You didn't announce it. You didn't seek sympathy or applause. You just stayed in the shadows and built, brick by brick. That personal pride can't be bought or faked, it's earned in silence. The man who comes back unrecognizable is often met with disbelief. People see the external changes, but have no idea about the internal rewiring that happened. They don't see the nights you wanted to quit but kept going. They don't know about the sacrifices you made while the world kept moving without you. Quiet mastery teaches you patience with timing. You understand that rushing ruins everything. Real growth takes seasons of stillness, reflection, and adjustment. You stop forcing things and start aligning with the process. That patience makes your progress steady and unshakable. Coming back unrecognizable requires cutting ties with your past limitations. You no longer identify with your old struggles. You stop saying things like, "That's just the way I am." You realize that identity is flexible, and if you're willing to suffer for growth, you can become whoever you decide to be. In the silence of your growth season, you develop laser focus. You stop multitasking life. You pick a mission and go all in. You don't chase 5 goals at once, you lock in on the one that matters most, knowing that mastery requires obsession, not distraction. There's a mental edge that comes from disappearing to rebuild. While others waste time proving themselves, you're studying, training, and evolving. You're building depth while others build noise. And when you come back, you're sharper not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. The transformation changes how you see struggle. You don't fear hard times anymore because you've trained in them. You don't panic when life gets heavy because you've practiced carrying weight in silence. Struggle becomes familiar, and because of that, it loses its power to stop you. Quiet mastery removes the need for comparison. You're not looking left or right anymore. You don't care who's ahead or behind. You're locked into your own journey, knowing that your timeline is yours alone. That focus frees you from the emotional roller coaster of competing with others. When you come back after private transformation, your discipline is visible without you saying a word. People can see it in how you walk, how you speak, how you handle situations. You no longer need to explain that you've changed, because your energy makes it clear. Part of becoming unrecognizable is learning how to detach from praise and criticism. You stop letting either one define you. You understand that both are temporary, both are distractions, and neither one controls your mission. You move forward, focused on legacy, not opinions. The man who chooses quiet mastery knows that shortcuts never lead to real success. He understands that consistency, not intensity, is the path to greatness. He's not trying to blow up overnight, building something that will last for decades, not just months. Coming back unrecognizable also means you've mastered solitude. You're no longer uncomfortable being alone. In fact, you prefer it during growth seasons because you know that real work requires isolation. Noise kills focus, and you've learned to prioritize focus over social comfort. You also become better at protecting your boundaries. The new you doesn't say yes to everything. You guard your time, your mind, and your energy because you know what it costs to rebuild. You're not going to sacrifice your growth for temporary pleasures or shallow commitments. Quiet mastery trains you to think long-term. You're no longer chasing quick hits of success or shallow accomplishments. You're building systems, routines, and mental strength that compound over years. You're not here to peak, you're here to sustain and elevate continuously. When you return unrecognizable, you carry a different level of gratitude. You remember the weak version of you that started this journey. You know how far you've come, and that creates humility. You don't forget the struggle. You use it as a reminder to never get comfortable again. This kind of transformation often makes you quieter, not louder. You're less interested in proving points and more interested in building results. You don't waste words convincing anyone of your growth because your results will say what words never could. Quiet mastery builds patience for isolation. You understand that not everyone can handle watching you change. Some will fall away naturally, others will distance themselves. You accept that. Growth requires separation. You don't fight it, you respect it as part of the process. When you come back unrecognizable, you don't seek revenge on the past, you outgrow it. You don't chase closure, you build forward. You don't replay old conversations, you focus on new chapters. Your mind lives in the future because the old version of you is gone, and you're not turning back. In the end, quiet mastery is about becoming the man who doesn't need to announce his power. He just lives it. He embodies it. And when he comes back after seasons of silent work, he's not the same man who disappeared. He's the man no one expected to return, so refined, so calm, and so powerful. They thought you were finished. They thought silence meant defeat. But now you understand the silence was your training ground. The loneliness was your teacher. You didn't need applause to rise. You didn't need permission to grow. You built yourself in the dark. And now you move differently, stronger, sharper, unstoppable. This is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of a new chapter, one where you don't chase validation, one where you don't beg for support. You've become your own force, and from this moment forward, you'll walk with the quiet confidence of someone who knows. When no one stands with you, you stand with yourself. Keep building in silence. The world will feel you whether they're ready or not.